Is an honor to welcome back here to the Eggs, Bacon, and Joey Morning Show, Kings County District Attorney Keith Fagundes. Good morning.
Good morning, Joey. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much for coming back to the show. It's been a while since you were here. I think it was, last October, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, last October.
Yes.
We had just started the TV and radio thing, so we're happy to be here and happy to provide this platform for a lot of things that you guys are working on with the District Attorney's Office. Tell me about something that's really important to you right now that you want to get out to the public.
Well, in October when we were here, we were talking about domestic violence. That is recognized nationally as Domestic Violence Month. As we fast forward now to February, February is Teen Dating Violence Month. And so part of our job is to not only prosecute criminals who violate the law, but also to bring awareness to issues to try to stop people from violating the law. So certainly our jobs are a whole lot better when there aren't victims out there. So as such, Phil Espenshade, our Assistant District Attorney, and I are trying to get out to as many forums as we can. We're in the schools, we're talking to the hospitals, we're in many other forums. And what we're trying to do is just get out that 1 in 3 teens are victims of some type of teen dating violence during their lifetimes, and that it's completely preventable. We wanted to kind of get out the message that there are certain telltale signs that you can notice in your children, and parents should be in your children's business. You are their parent.
Exactly.
You should know what they're on Facebook and all of the social media. You should be in their business. You really should be. And you should know who they're dating, certainly. So what we'd like to tell parents is just to pay attention to your children's activities, pay attention to their comings and goings, and if they're coming in too late, it's your job to watch their curfew. But more importantly, if they tend to be in a relationship where they feel necessary to immediately respond to their significant other, that's a red flag. That's something you should be wary of and not just ignore. That's typically a controlling relationship, and domestic violence, teen dating violence spawns out of control, and it's not about the physicality of the whole crime. It's really about the control over the person, and it's about low self-esteem and many other psychological factors. But we certainly want people to be aware that just pay attention to your children, pay attention to what they're doing on social media, pay attention to with whom they're hanging with all the time, and if they're in a controlling relationship, intervene. There's nothing wrong with intervening and educating your children that they are not the property of somebody else. They are not at somebody else's whim to take care of them. And so, especially for young ladies, they don't need to be in an environment where they are forced to respond even to a quick text message. So that's one of the many messages. Off of that, in the wake of the weekend's traffic activities, I certainly want to bring attention. You mentioned it on the news. I'm just floored. All weekend, CHP had called, and we're in communication back and forth. And it was almost unfathomable that we've had this many in 3 short days here in our little county. So there are many families who are devastated. Our hearts go out to them. But the bad thing is that all of these tragic events are certainly preventable. And they're preventable because more than half of them were caused by drunk drivers and or distracted drivers. So these are things that are completely preventable. I advocate that if you're going to have even one drink these days, that you turn over your keys to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I have to tell you that it's a misnomer that we have a .08 legal limit, because somebody can be drunk driving and kill somebody at a .02. They can be impaired even at a lower amount. So I try to encourage people, just give up your keys with that first drink, because let's face it, the drunk person has very little judgment to be counting how many drinks they have or whether they're capable of driving a car. So if there's anything that we can do to try to educate even more, Phil Espenshade, Kathy Chaffini, and I will go anywhere, anytime to educate people on drunk driving, teen dating violence, human trafficking, domestic violence, anything that is within our purview. We certainly want to prevent crime and prevent tragedy before it happens.
And the thing is that there's so many options now, especially for when you're out drinking. I mean, there's Uber, there's taxis, there's friends that you can call. I mean, please do not get in your car after a couple drinks. Just call an Uber. There's options out there for you.
Oh, the designated driver was created even way back in the 80s.
Way back when.
And here we are this many years later still, again, with Uber. I mean, they're your new best friend these days. Yeah. So they're relatively inexpensive, and don't forget local taxis. Just don't forget good old-fashioned common sense. Give your keys to somebody else.
Yeah. It's just sad that we're having to report that even here this morning about families that are devastated from what happened this past weekend. On your topic initially, in regards to the teen dating, because last October when you came in here, we talked about domestic violence, more of an adult-related issue. Not to say that they're both any different, but adults obviously are a little bit more in charge of what's happening and kind of understand what's going on. With teens, though, a little more complicated, right? Because, as you mentioned, it could be, a female or male in a relationship that, could be under abuse that you may not know about as a parent. And you want to do that almost your own investigation, I guess, at home, right? You want to kind of search through things, make sure you're kind of keeping tabs with the social media, and kind of understand what your child is going through, especially during this time.
Well, that's true. And the thing to keep in mind is that when it comes to teens, a relationship doesn't start off volatile. It doesn't start off violent. It doesn't start off controlling. So you'll want to watch the progression of the relationship. And so if you have a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl they're all boy crazy at that age, I'm told, and they're texting and back and forth, keep an eye on those things. Just keep an eye on them. It's a dangerous road to go down, and Phil and I have noticed that with a lot of the human trafficking issues that they start off slowly like that. And next thing you know, you have Phil calls, and it's out there. I hate to say the word on your morning show, but the Romeo pimp. He's a guy who comes in as the boyfriend, and he cajoles the young girls and convinces them how beautiful they are, and hey, you can make just a little bit more money. And that's on our human trafficking awareness educational side of things. But it starts out somewhere. Now, I don't want to put fear in all parents that every single boy at the high school is somehow going to humanly traffic their daughter.
Exactly.
But
no.
In the same token, just be aware. Know the families that your child is going to be around. And so I know a rule in my household is my child doesn't really get to go anywhere unless I know the parents and I know where they're going. So it's just a good practice to be in. It's good old-fashioned common sense.
What do you say to those parents that say, well, if I get, if I look too much into their social media, or if I follow them, and now, my kid is now thinking that I'm, just on their shoulder all the time, and now they're getting upset with me. What do you say to those parents that are afraid of getting too involved with their kids' social media?
I would say don't be afraid at all, because it's a lot more fear to not know where your daughter is if she's out with some young man or young boy who's really taking advantage of her or controlling her or abusing her in some fashion. So the trade-off is really minimal when it comes to having your daughter a little bit upset with you.
Now, have you heard about these private social media accounts that teenagers create? So, for example, parents may be thinking they're actually seeing their teenager's social media account, but then they have another one that they've created just for, let's just say, private to those friends that are doing kind of the same stuff. Have you heard of stuff like that?
We have heard of it, and again, if you're just in your child's business, and there's nothing illegal and nothing wrong with that, if you're in your child's business, your child's going to be less likely to be involved in those types of things. Does it happen? Of course. So be wary of it. And also, just keep that in the back of your mind that it is possible. So I'm glad you brought that up.
No, yeah, I wanted to bring that up specifically, especially with teen dating. Now, I know there's not a rule to saying, okay, at this age, my teenager should start dating. Every parent has their own rule to allow their teenager to start dating. What advice would you give based on information that you've seen? Obviously, these cases that are pretty dramatic in the fact that you have teenagers going through these situations. What advice would you give parents as far as an age that dating can begin? Is it even difficult to say as far as or even come up with an age where you say, you know what, that's the right age for them to start dating?
Well, it is. I mean, I've met 21-year-olds who shouldn't be dating anybody at this point. So
Exactly.
People just have a hard time keeping their lives together. But I can tell you that, and this isn't the law, it's not a rule by anybody else should live for, but I kind of have this mentality that if your child can't drive away from any certain situation, then they probably ought to not be dating anybody. So
wow, no, that's good advice. I like that.
Nothing worse than feeling stranded, and you caught me off guard. I hadn't been asked that question before, but
Well, and the reason why I bring it up, because I have a daughter. you know, I have a daughter. She's going to be turning 11 years old here soon. I mean, she's still, you know, not even to the tween era, but still, I mean, it's going to happen. My time is going to come when my daughter is eventually going to start dating. And, you know, you want to kind of get that grasp of like, well, when do you allow that? And, you know, is it just something that you if you feel that your child is ready to do it, then you allow them to do it. But like you said, if they can't drive away from a situation, maybe they shouldn't be dating, and I absolutely agree with that. So, and not to say that we're pushing that on parents. Hey, every parent can allow their teenager to do what they want based on their discretion.
That's true. That's true. We don't want to be everybody's parent in society, but some good old advice. I mean, my parents raised us with certain rules, and you know, I'm the youngest of 7, and we all turned out pretty well. So. I'm going to try to mimic those rules as much as possible. That's the good old-fashioned motto of having 2 parents who are in your business so much that they know exactly what you're doing.
I think one of the important things, and the reason why I like having you here, is because your office is always open. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't realize they can go and get a lot of information from you guys, right?
That's true. That's true. We have a vast network of information going on. We have Phil Espenshade in the office, who's an expert in several topics, and he's been instrumental in all of our public outreach. So I, of course, thank him for that. But we also have a child abduction unit. We have a special investigations unit that is, you know, three prison investigators. We have sexual assault investigator. In fact, we're in the process of being certified and recognized nationally for the work that team is doing. And you know, we are involved in so many public outreaches. We are getting ready to do a whole series of every 15 minutes programs, which is the awareness for no teen drinking and driving in the high schools. And yes, I know Phil and I will schedule appointments with anybody from the public if they just have basic questions. And some of what we deal with is public record, so of course we will disclose those things, but some of what we deal with is not. So any ongoing cases, we won't just divulge information. But what is in the public record, we will divulge about ongoing cases. So yeah, we are available as a resource for anybody who needs speakers or anybody who just wants to have an education on exactly what's going on in your DA's office. Because I know I took office in 2015, January, and we have done just so many transformations in so many levels. You know, the new case management system. We went from having almost 3,000 cases sitting waiting to go to the court to having 0 at the end of last year.
Wow.
We went from having about 1,800 cases being reviewed by attorneys to having just about a couple hundred left by the end of the year. And when you divide that amongst 20 attorneys, that's about 10 each. That's not anything that can't be managed. Yeah. So we're making a whole lot of progress. Every year we've cut about $500,000 from our budget and put it to other uses and put it to good use. So we are, you know, just plugging along, and we are the people's office. So certainly they have a right to know what's going on. We try to be as transparent as possible, and you know, we are there. We'll be anywhere, anytime to do any kind of presentation for people.
So once again, what is the theme for this month?
The theme for this month is teen dating violence.
Teen dating violence.
And we'll be at Lemoore High School, I believe, next week, hitting all the 10th graders with that message. And we'll go in several segments. And if you know Lemoore High School, they're a huge high school. It's a small city out there. So focusing on the 10th graders right now is a great goal that we have. And we're hoping that we send a message to stop. We don't want to see a teenage victim.
No, of course not. And I think that, once again, I want our listeners and viewers to understand how important it is to be involved with your kids, especially in these type of situations when you're getting into teenage dating. And I think one of the main themes that we've said here during our segment is that it's okay to be involved. You got to be your own investigator with your kids, and you got to know what's going on, because if you don't, you know, bad things can happen.
That's right. There's no better advocate for you than you. That's the bottom line. As much as we love to advocate for others and work hard for others, at the end of the day, there's the best advocate for your interests are you.
Mr. Fagundes, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. It's the Eggs, Bacon, and Joey Morning Show. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.